Today you guys are going to be starting a project on the coordinate plane and graphing. So this is the coordinate plane graphing project. You should have this packet in front of you. Go ahead and write your first and last name at the top of your paper. And then your periods of it's period 1, 2, 3, or so forth. So what you're going to see here, the first part is the rubric. This is how you're going to get graded on this project. And we'll come back to this later, but it's definitely a good idea to kind of read each of the things that you're going to be graded on in order to get your total score. The next part is a little bit of a review. So the directions say to write the signs for the points in each quadrant. So in these spaces below, you're going to put the signs. Then you're going to write the quadrant of each point below, so over here. So, for example, and you can use your notes to help you with this, I know that in quadrant 1, the x-coordinate is always positive, and the y-coordinate is also always positive. So, for any ordered pairs over here where both numbers are positive, I know it's going to be quadrant 1. So right here I see 8 and 14 hundredths and 18. Those are both positive, and so those would have to fall in quadrant 1. So I would keep going through and kind of go through each of your quadrants to figure out which quadrant the points belong to. Okay. Okay, so once you finish this part, we're going to move into the directions of the actual project. So if you take a look here, I'm going to go through and just kind of highlight a few things that are going to be really important. And so feel free to underline or highlight as we go through it. But basically, it says design a picture on the coordinate plane using at least 20 points. Follow the guidelines below. So you get to create a picture or some sort of a design in the coordinate plane, and you're going to be using at least 20 points. You could use more, you just can't use less. So your picture must have only vertical, horizontal, or diagonal lines. So that's pretty important. So only vertical, horizontal, or diagonal lines. Do not use circles. So there shouldn't be any circles or curved lines. Only draw a point at the ends of each line. So draw a point at the ends of each line. So what that means, for example, is like here, this would be perfect. You've got points at the end of the line. A ruler's been used to draw it. Same thing here. You've got points on this horizontal line, and there's a ruler that was used to draw it. Here we've got a diagonal line. That's fine. And there's points to points at the end of the line. This doesn't work here. And the reason is because it says draw a point at the ends of each line. So we should only have a point at the end and at the beginning of the line. We shouldn't have these 3 points in the middle. And then lastly, you can't have curved lines or a circle. Okay, so let's look at some more of kind of the directions here. First thing, use a ruler or straight edge. So to create the lines. So that could be, for example, a ruler, but it could also be things like your ID. So like here's mine, I could use that as a straight edge. You could use the edge of a notebook, for example. So any straight edge will work. Next, your picture must have at least 20 points. You can have more than 20 points if needed, and you probably will, but you must have at least 5 points in each quadrant. Okay, so at least 5 points in each quadrant. So remember, there's 4 quadrants, so when you draw your picture, you need to have at least 5 of the points in quadrant 1, another 5 in quadrant 2, and so forth. All right, next it says select 5 points in each quadrant. Label each of these with a letter according to the guide at the bottom of the coordinate plane. So we're going to highlight that. That's pretty important. And I'll show you this in just a minute here on the next page. For example, in quadrant 1, label 5 points with letters A through E. You will likely have many more points in each quadrant, but only 5 need to have a letter. All right, and then the next thing here says write the ordered pair for each of the points you labeled. So that's going to be really important. The ordered pairs do not need to be written in a special order. You just need to make sure each point matches the corresponding ordered pair. If you have more than 20 points, you do not need to label or write ordered pairs for the extra points. So in each quadrant, you're labeling and writing the ordered pairs for 5 points. If you have more than 5 points, you don't need to worry about the extra points. All right, and then lastly, neatly color your design. Make sure you turn in work that makes you proud. So let's take a look here at the next page. This is where you're actually going to create your picture, and also at the bottom you'll see this is where you'll put your ordered pairs. So you can create whatever kind of picture you want. For my example, I'm going to use the letters in my last name, Rain, to try and create a picture. So I'm going to use pen just because it stands out better on the projector here, but you should definitely be using pencil so you can also erase. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the letter R, and I'm going to create 2 points here to start out the letter R. And so I'm going to use my straight edge here to connect these points. So you'll notice I've drawn a line, and I only put points at the ends of that line. Okay, so I'm going to continue to draw my letter here. So I'm trying to draw the letter R. And I'm just going to show you one part of my picture. I'm not going to do the whole picture, but that way you kind of get an idea of what I'm doing. So all I'm doing right now is I'm kind of creating this picture using my ruler and different points. And let's see here. I need to kind of create the other part of my R. And let's see. I think I'll go over here. And you'll notice every time I draw a new point, I'm using the ruler or my straight edge to connect them. And let's see, I think I'll make the R go out to here. And let's see, maybe I'll draw this to here. And almost got my R done. It's not a perfect R, but I think it's going to definitely look like the letter R. And you don't have to do your name. This is just an example. You could draw an animal. You could draw a flower. You could draw all sorts of things. All right, so I'm going to draw the middle of my R now. So let's see here. Maybe I'll do this. All right, let's see. Hopefully, I think this is going to look like the letter R now. Okay, so there is the first part of my picture. There's the letter R. Now, what I want to do is I want to make sure that as I finish my picture, I'm drawing at least 5 points in each of the 4 quadrants. You might have more, and most likely you're going to. So for example, I haven't finished my picture, but in quadrant 2 right now, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points. I only need 5 of them. And if you look down below, for each of the 4 quadrants, you have room to put your 5 points. So I'm working in quadrant 2 right now, so I'm going to go ahead and label 5 points F through J. So I'm going to use this one for F, and I'm just going to label it next to the point. Here's G, there's H, here's I, and I'll use this one for J. So I have labeled 5 points F through J, and you'll see they're right down here for quadrant 2. And so now I need to come up with the ordered pairs for those. So if I start with point F, I see that on the x-axis, I'm in between -7 and -8. So that would be -7.5 or -7 5/10. And then on the y-axis, it looks like I went up to 3.5 or 3 5/10. So let me write that down for letter F. So that was -7.5, comma, +3.5. Okay, so there's my ordered pair for point F. Now I need to find G. So here's G. and I see I went over to -3.5 and up to +3.5. So that would be -3.5, +3.5. And I'm going to keep doing that until I get through to point J. You'll notice I have these extra points. If I have extra points, I'll have the points shown here, but I'm not going to label them and I don't need to identify them. I only need to identify 5 points from each of the 4 quadrants. Okay, so I of course need to continue and finish my picture here. This is just kind of the beginning, but that's kind of the main idea of what you're doing for this project. As you're working and as you get started, it might be a good idea to reread your directions and also to go back to the rubric to see what you're going to be graded on. So if you look here, the first thing says points are only drawn at endpoints of line segments. So you'll notice when I drew my R, I didn't add additional points on the same line. I only put a point on the 2 endpoints for that line. Right, the next thing, lines are drawn with a ruler or straight edge. So I used a ruler to make all my lines. Only horizontal, vertical, and diagonal lines are used. So you can see I don't have any curved lines here. They're either straight up and down, straight left and right, or diagonal. At least 20 points are labeled correctly from A to T. So I haven't finished mine yet, but I'm getting there. There are at least 5 points in each quadrant. So again, I'm not done yet, but that's what my goal should be. The picture is colored. Effort, care, and thought are evident in the work. So I haven't colored mine in yet because I'm not done, but once I'm done, I would go ahead and color in my picture to make it a final product and really look like I put in the effort and care into this project. Okay, so today you're going to start this project. Take your time with it. Make sure you're using pencil to answer these questions down below and also to create your drawing.